Come on my friends, welcome back to another video. Recently I've been getting some death wobble on the Jimny, so that's steering vibrations at around 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. So in this video, I'm going to show you some common causes of this death wobble and we're going to fix it on the Jimny. A common reason for steering vibration is unbalanced wheels. Your wheel could become unbalanced if you have a lot of mud stuck on it after a trail. Also, if one of your balancing weight falls off your wheel, this could also cause your wheel to become unbalanced and you'll get that steering vibration. Another cause for these steering vibrations could be any worn components in your steering system. So let me show you some right now. So let's start with this Panhard bar. If this bar is bent in any way, this will cause that wobble on your Jimny. Moving to the ends of the Panhard bar, if these bushings are worn, this would also cause these steering vibrations. Another cause of the death wobble would be worn tie rod ends. So there are 4 on the Jimny. If these become worn or the boot is torn, the grease will leak out and you'll have metal to metal contact. This end would become very loose, causing the death wobble on the Jimny. So if you check all those and everything good, the last thing to check is the bearings. So let me show you how to check that. So to check the bearings, you're gonna get the wheel off the ground, then grip it like this, give it a shake. If you feel any play, it means that the wheel bearing is bad. To check the Kingpin bearing, you want to have someone step on the brakes and then repeat the same step of holding the wheel and shaking it to see if there's any play. This wheel isn't so bad, but earlier we changed Bosch's wheel bearing and his one were a bit worn, so I'll show you what that looks like.
I could give it a shake up and down too. I want a little bit of play in this one. Slight thing. Let me check the culprit here. Let me check the culprit here. You know? So, yeah. That one to play now. Yeah, I want that. Yeah, why your wheel flying out in the air? You know?
Also, I want to mention that this may not always be 100% accurate. 3 years ago when I changed these bearings, there were no play on the wheel whatsoever, but when we remove them, this is what they look like. So the reason why I know it's my bearings that need changing is because I haven't replaced them in 3 years. Now when I bought the vehicle in 2020, I did a service on the front axle and replaced all the bearings. Since then, I have not touched any bearing or seals on the front axle. And that is how I know that I need to replace them, because I do wheel this vehicle and it has oversized tires on it. So if we look here on the front knuckle, you can see that we have some oil leaking from the back of the knuckle here. This means that the inner axle seal is bad and the diff oil is leaking. So that needs to be changed. Same thing on this side here. You can see that one starting to leak there, which means the seal on this is bad as well. Alright, so I just want to mention that these are some of the common issues that cause that wobble. And these may not be all of the issues, so just keep that in mind. And also, a steering stabilizer does not fix that wobble. Because if the cause of your death wobble is a worn bearing, adding a stabilizer is not going to fix the bearing. So adding a stabilizer is just going to mask the problem. So just keep that in mind with respect to stabilizers. Seeing that the inner axle seal needs replacing, and I haven't changed the bearings in 3 years, in this video we're going to be doing an overhaul on the front axle. So you're going to be changing the Kingpin bearings, the wheel bearings, and we're going to be replacing all the seals. Before we start, all of the bearings and seals used in this video can be found on jimnybits.com, and I will link them in the description. So I have a wheel spacer, so we're going to remove that first. Alright, to remove the caliper, so next we're going to remove the hub, and to do that you need a special 3/8" star socket. The 1/2" drive would be too big, so you need the 3/8" to fit between the bolt and the hub. So now that the hub off, we're going to remove the rotor, but it's stuck on there, So I'm going to use the same hub bolt with the star socket, and we're going to pop the rotor out. Alright, so there's a C-clip that we need to remove. So get C-clip pliers. Alright, so now we need to remove the truss washer, which is this right here. Alright, so there's a little tab here that we need to depress in order to remove the locking nut. So now we're gonna need a special tool to remove the lock nut. This tool can be found on the Jimny Bits website. I'll leave a link down below. So this goes in here and we remove the lock nut. So next there's a washer to remove. And then we could remove the hub. Alright, so this bearing definitely worn. Here it is. That's not supposed to sound so. Now we want to undo these 4 bolts to remove the dust cover. So we remove the dust cover, and underneath here, real crusty. So now we're going to remove the tie rod bolts. I did soak these last night with penetrating oil to make it a little bit easier to remove, so it should come out easy now. A lot easier than I thought. So next you want to remove these vacuum hoses from the spindle. You want to be careful with these could snap very easily, so you could use a flathead and just easily prise them off. There we go. 2. Then we could remove the spindle. Look how crusty inside it looks. It is. Ooh. Look at that. That is very crusty. So now we have to undo the bolts for the dust shield behind the hub here, and then we'll remove the 2 kingpin top and bottom and take out everything. Alright, now we're gonna undo the top and bottom kingpin. Alright, now you don't want to mix these kingpin up. You want to keep the top one for the top and the bottom one for the bottom. So I'm just gonna put a little mark on this top one. Alright, so I know the orange dot goes with the orange on top. So that way I can't mix up the kingpins. Look at the color of that. That grease not supposed to be that color. Now we could remove the steering knuckle. Alright, so this is what the hub looks like. A lot of old grease in there. So let's check the top kingpin. I like it. It feels a little bit sandy, but I would say it's decent. It's not completely worn. Yeah, if you could hear this, let me put it by the mic. Yeah, so that's the top kingpin. So this is the lower kingpin here. Definitely a lot sandier. Now it's time to clean everything up. I know a lot of people who would just repack this, leaving the old grease, but we don't do things like that around here. If you're doing something, we do it proper. So you're gonna clean out this old grease and then replace it with fresh new grease. So to remove the kingpin race, we can use a 1-inch socket and just tap it out. Now that we have the knuckle clean out, we could remove the inner axle seal. Alright, so I just spent about 2 to 2.5 hours cleaning parts. Let me show you how everything come out. So you can see the hub here, nice and clean, no more grease. And then these are all of the parts here. So you can see them nice and clean. I cleaned all the kingpin. So I made sure and clean all the surface, remove all the old RTV, cleaned all the bolts. Clean the axle shaft. Everything here is grease free. So next we're gonna work on the wheel bearing. Alright, so there's a seal here that needs to be removed before we could remove the bearing. So let's remove that. Alright, so I forgot to mention there's also a C-clip inside here that we need to remove before we could press out the bearing. You could reuse this, or if the kit comes with new ones, you can use those as well. This is the press that I made to press the wheel bearing. We have 4x2 C channel at the bottom. We have 4x2 C channel on top. We have some 1-inch threaded rods, and we have a 6-ton bottle jack bolted on the base. This top is adjustable depending on what you want to press. So this is just a small little makeshift press that I made without any welding. Let's see how it works. Alright, so to press the bearing, I made this little disc to fit right inside here. So we put the jack there, flip this over, and then I have this piece of tubing that goes over the top, but it's big enough so that the bearing could fit inside the tubing, and we'll press it out like that. I also made the shield to go over here. Anything fall doesn't hit my hand. So this is the bearing that just came out. If you listen, you can hear it rattling. So this is a one bearing. And my little press works. This is the hub. Everything came out nice and clean. So yeah, really proud of this. Alright, so this is the new bearing. It's Koyo brand. You could pick this up on jimnybits.com. I'll leave the link in the description. To press this bearing, I also have a tool, which is a 2-inch collar that I grind down one side, so I can press on the outer race of the bearing, so I don't damage the bearing. Alright, so there we have it, the new wheel bearing pressed in. So just replacing back the circuit. Alright, now it's time to replace the seal. So again, this can be found on jimnybits.com. I'll link it in the description. Alright, so there we have it. Hub ready to be mounted back on the Jimny. Alright, so now we could replace the inner axle seal. It just goes in like that. And we could use a 1 1/16 inch socket just to tap it in. So these are the Kingpin bearings. You could pick these up on jimnybits.com. I'll put the link in the description. So now we're gonna install the race, and then we grease the bearings and install them. You just want to inspect it to make sure that the bearing is seated properly. One thing with these bearings, you don't want to mix up the bearing with the race. Keep the same race with the same bearing. So my top bearing is actually on top of the hood. So since this is the lower one, I'll put this under here. You want to install them to the thick side. So there's a thick side and then there's a thin side. You want to put the thick side first, like that, so the bearing can go in afterwards. So now it's time to install back the seal. Again, link for this would be in the description. So now I want to repack this joint with grease. So when you repack this, you want to make sure that this piece right here is clean, because this is where the oil seal sits and you don't want grease in that area. So now we want to pack inside here back with grease. Alright, so I just packed this with grease. Next is to grease the Kingpin bearings for the top and bottom and put them in. So I have the bearing here. So in order to grease it, we need to put some grease in our hand and then work the grease inside the rollers of the bearing. So just put some grease on your hand like this. take the bearing, hold it like this, and you just work in it like that. So you can see the grease coming out on top of the rollers. That's what you want. So as you see that, you just rotate. Rotate again. Rotate again. Alright, so you can see now we have completed the top. All of the bearings, all of the rollers have grease in it. So you could just kind of clean that up a little bit. Switch it around. Give it all grease like that. And we have a grease bearing. So all we need to do now is just put this there. And then repeat the same thing for the bottom. Alright, so we go and put on back the knuckle cover. Alright, so we have our Kingpin here. Before we put them on, we need to apply a little sealant on the edge and then put it in. Alright, so we have some sealant around the edge there. So now we could fit it in. Alright, so now I want to repeat the same thing for the lower Kingpin. Alright, so we could send these home and then torque them. Alright, so the torque spec on the Kingpin bolts are 18 foot-pounds. We're gonna put back on the oil seal. Oh, I forgot to clip this. No, I already did that. Right, not too bad. So now we can move on to putting on the oil seal, the dust seal at the back. So the torque spec for these is like 7.5 foot-pounds, which is really little bit, so you could just hand tighten it. So you just want to add a little bit of grease on the inside here. The manual said it's supposed to do about 100 grams of grease, which is like a quarter of one of these canisters. So yeah, I'm just averaging. So over time what happens is this grease wears out, and due to gravity, all the grease, when it thins out over time, it would fall to the bottom of the knuckle, and the top Kingpin wouldn't have any grease, causing it to wear out. So I think that should be fine there. The manual said to lubricate the bushing here with some grease, and so both the inner of the bushing and the flange. So let's do that. Just a little bit of grease. You don't do too much because this is part of the vacuum which controls the automatic hub. So if you have too much grease here and the line is clogged, you wouldn't get your 4x4. Alright, but we'll check that afterwards, just in case we put too much grease. Alright, so let's do the sealant. Alright, so we have our sealant added, so let's reinstall back the spindle. Alright, so I just have this hole on here. I want to test the vacuum to make sure everything good before we close it up. To test the vacuum to make sure the passage is not clogged, we're just going to blow some air through these connections. That's good. That's good. Alright, so now we could just undo these two bolts and put on back the shield. The torque spec on these bolts is 36.5 foot-pounds. You just connect back the hose. So now we're going to put back on the hub. Before we put back on the hub, we need to add a little grease on the seal. The manual said about 60% in the vacant space, but that's a small space, so I'm just going to put a little bit of grease there and inside on the bearing. So we have our grease. Now it's time to install back the hub. Alright, then we're going to add back the washer, and then we're going to add the lock nut. Alright, so now it's time to tighten back the lock nut. This tightened to 160 foot-pounds. Alright, so next what we're going to do is expose the cutout for the C-clip. So just take the same star bolt or M8, like a vice grip or something, grip it and give it a pull, just like that. So you can see we expose the cutout for the C-clip. Before we put the magnets, we need to apply some grease to both sides, like that. Everything looks good, feels nice and solid now, no more noise. Now it's time to put on back the tie rod. Alright, so these have a torque spec of 32 foot-pounds. These can torque to 35 foot-pounds. It's the next day. I changed the bearings on both knuckles, so check it out. So nice and clean, no more grease. Same thing on the other side, nice and clean there. So let's go take it for a test drive and see if we still getting any steering vibrations. We're entering on the highway. Let me take it up to speed and see if we get any of that wobble. So 40, 50, 60, and we smooth. Like no steering shake, nothing. That's 70. Let's go back down, see if we get it. 60. We're on 60 there, that's where we usually get it. And you can see it's completely smooth. 70. 80, 90. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, leave some good vibes in the comments. Also, depending on where you're watching this video could be uploaded on the last day or the second to last day of 2023. Either way, I just want to say thank you for all of the love and the support that you've shown me in 2023 and all of the previous years. I look forward to continue making videos for you all. If you have any ideas or any specific videos that you want, you all can drop it in the comments. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and all the best for the new year. See you all in 2024. Peace.